Have you ever thought about growing vegetables you only have to plant once? Most people haven't. Because nobody talks about this. The seed catalogs don't push it. The nurseries don't lead with it. Every spring, the whole industry is set up to get you buying again. New seeds, new starts, new everything. But there's a group of vegetables that breaks that cycle completely. You put them in the ground one time, and they come back every year on their own. Not just surviving, producing. Like an orchard that happens to be a vegetable garden. My name is Daniel, and today I'm going to show you 8 of them. The last one on this list is the one that changed how I think about growing food entirely. You'll see why. Let's get into it. Vegetable 1. Asparagus. If you've never grown asparagus, the first thing you need to know is that it rewards patience like almost nothing else in the vegetable garden. You plant the crowns once, usually in early spring, and for the first 2 years, you leave them alone. No harvesting. You let the root system build. It goes deep, wide, and strong underground while you wait. And then, in year 3, something changes. The spears start pushing up in early spring, before most vegetables have even been seeded. And from that point on, your asparagus bed produces every single year without you doing anything. A well-established bed can feed a family for 20 years or more from a single planting. The crowns expand season after season, producing more spears every spring, not fewer. Fresh asparagus from the garden tastes nothing like what you buy at the store. The difference is so significant that most people who grow it stop buying it entirely. Plant asparagus crowns in full sun, in well-drained soil with some compost worked in. Space them about 18 inches apart in rows and give the bed its own permanent space. Because once it's producing, you won't want to disturb it for decades. Here's what most people don't know. Choose all-male hybrid varieties like Jersey Night or Jersey Supreme. Male plants put all their energy into producing spears rather than seeds, which means significantly higher yields every season. Vegetable 2. Rhubarb. Rhubarb is one of those plants that once it's in the ground, it simply doesn't stop. Most gardeners think of rhubarb as a fruit ingredient, pies, jams, crisps, but it's technically a vegetable, and it's one of the most productive perennials you can grow. The thick red stalks appear in early spring, often before anything else in the garden has woken up, and the harvest window runs through late spring and into early summer depending on your climate. You plant it once from a crown or a division, give it 1 season to establish, and from year 2 onward, you're harvesting every spring without replanting. A healthy rhubarb plant can stay productive in the same spot for 15 to 20 years. There are documented plants that have been in the same location for over 50 years, still producing reliably every spring. Plant rhubarb in full sun to partial shade, in deep, fertile, well-drained soil. Give each plant plenty of room. They spread wide as they mature. Water consistently through the first season to establish strong roots, and then step back. One thing every rhubarb grower needs to know: only the stalks are edible. The leaves are toxic and should be cut off and discarded as soon as you harvest. It's not something to worry about, just something to know before you start. Vegetable 3. Globe artichoke. Most people think of artichokes as something they buy at a grocery store once or twice a year. Growing them as a perennial changes that completely. Globe artichoke is a dramatic plant. It grows up to 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide, with silvery green architectural foliage that looks impressive even before it produces. The edible part is the flower bud, harvested before it opens. And in a good season, one established plant can produce a dozen or more of those buds, with the largest and most flavorful ones coming from the central stem. What makes artichokes earn their place on this list is what happens after that first season. The root system sends up new shoots, called offsets, each spring, and the plant gets more productive every year it's in the ground. In zones 7 and warmer, artichokes are fully perennial and die back only slightly in winter. In cooler zones, a layer of mulch over the crown in late fall is usually enough protection to bring it back the following spring. Plant artichokes in full sun with rich, well-drained soil. Water them regularly during bud development. That's when the moisture matters most. And give them real space, because a mature artichoke plant is a significant presence in the garden. Here's the detail most people miss. Harvest the buds when they're still tightly closed and firm. Once they start to open even slightly, the flavor declines quickly. Tight and compact is when they're at their best. Vegetable 4. Chives. Chives might be the most underestimated vegetable on this entire list, because they're so familiar that most gardeners stop noticing what they actually do. Plant chives once in a sunny spot with decent soil, and they will come back every single year, spreading slowly into a larger and larger clump, producing hollow green leaves from early spring through late fall. The harvest is continuous. You cut what you need, and the plant keeps growing. There's no waiting for a specific window. No worrying about the right moment. Chives are simply always there. The flavor is mild onion, sharp enough to add something real to eggs, soups, potatoes, salads, and almost anything savory, but gentle enough not to overpower. The purple flowers that appear in late spring are also edible, and they look beautiful scattered over a dish. What separates chives from most vegetables is how they multiply. Every few years, the clump gets large enough to divide, and when you divide it, you get new plants for free. One initial planting can eventually supply your entire garden and your neighbors. Plant chives in full sun with well-drained soil. They tolerate drought once established, handle cold better than most herbs, and ask for almost nothing in return for years of continuous production. Here's what most people don't know. Cutting chives back hard in midsummer, right to the base, triggers a full flush of fresh, tender new growth that lasts through fall. Most gardeners don't do this. The ones who do get 2 full seasons of flavor from a single plant every year. I want to pause here for a second, because this matters. Over the years, I've spent a lot of time figuring out which plants actually feed you year after year. Not just survive, but produce. Which ones come back stronger every season? Which ones are worth the ground they take up? And which ones disappoint you after the first year? I kept notes on all of it. What worked? What didn't? What I'd do differently. And I put everything together into what I call the Hardy Garden Guide. 30 of the most reliable perennials I've found. Plants proven to perform season after season, organized by condition. Sun or shade, wet or dry, small spaces or large open beds. The kind of resource it takes years to build on your own, through trial and error. I made it available, but not for long. The last time I released something like this, it was gone in under 48 hours. If you're watching right now, it may still be there. I can't promise it will be tomorrow. The link is in the first pinned comment below. Not the description, the pinned comment. Open it in a new tab right now, grab your copy while it's still there, and come back. Because what's coming up next on this list is where things get really interesting. Vegetable 5. Horseradish. Here's one that surprises almost every gardener who hears it for the first time. Horseradish is a perennial, And once it's in the ground, it doesn't just come back, it expands. Most people know horseradish as a condiment, the sharp, pungent sauce that goes alongside roast beef in cocktail sauce with smoked fish. What they don't know is that it grows from a root you plant once, and that root pushes out new growth every spring without fail, producing more harvestable root each year than the year before. The plant itself grows 2 to 3 feet tall with large, dark green leaves that are striking in the garden. Underground, the root system spreads outward season after season. To harvest, you dig at the edges of the plant in fall, take what you need, and leave the center intact to return the following year. Freshly grated horseradish from the garden is dramatically more intense and flavorful than anything that comes in a jar. Plant horseradish from root cuttings in early spring in a sunny location with deep, loose soil. Give it room, it will spread. Some gardeners contain it in a large pot sunk into the ground to keep it from taking over. That's a legitimate strategy if your space is limited. One honest note: horseradish is vigorous. In ideal conditions, it will spread more than you expected. Plant it where you want permanent production and are willing to manage the edges. What you get in return is a harvest that costs you almost nothing after that first planting. Vegetable 6. Sunchoke. If you want to understand how productive a vegetable perennial can actually be, sunchokes are the answer. Also known as Jerusalem artichokes, though they have nothing to do with Jerusalem and aren't really artichokes, sunchokes are native to North America and grow with an energy that borders on aggressive. The plants reach 6 to 10 feet tall in a single season, topped with bright yellow sunflower-like blooms in late summer. Underground, they're producing dozens of tubers, knobby, ginger-shaped, starchy roots that taste like a cross between a potato and an artichoke heart. You harvest the tubers in late fall after the first frost, when the starches have fully developed and the flavor is at its peak. Roast them, slice them raw into salads, simmer them into soups, or use them anywhere you'd use a potato. They store well in a cool, dry place for several months. Here's the part that makes sunchokes exceptional on this list. You don't replant them. Whatever tubers you leave in the ground after harvest, and there will always be some, come back the following spring and produce a full new crop. One planting turns into a permanent, self-replenishing food source. Plant sunchokes in full sun with any type of soil. They're not particular. Space them about a foot apart. The one thing to know up front: give them their own dedicated bed. In good conditions, sunchokes spread enthusiastically and will outcompete anything planted nearby. Contain them, and they'll feed you indefinitely. Vegetable 7. Wild arugula. Most gardeners know regular arugula, the peppery salad green that bolts in summer heat and turns bitter within weeks of planting. Wild arugula is a completely different plant, and almost nobody grows it the way it deserves to be grown. Wild arugula, Diplotaxis tenuifolia, is a true perennial. The leaves are more deeply cut than regular arugula. The flavor is more intense and nutty, and unlike its annual cousin, it doesn't bolt in heat. It keeps producing through summer, through fall, and in mild climates, through winter entirely. One plant, harvested continuously, for years. The flavor works on everything regular arugula works on: salads, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, but with more character. A handful of wild arugula on a finished dish adds something that store-bought greens simply can't replicate. Plant wild arugula in full sun to partial shade in well-drained soil. It tolerates heat better than almost any other salad green, which makes it particularly valuable in the gap between spring and fall when most cool-season vegetables have given up. Cut it regularly to encourage new tender growth, and it will reward you with continuous production across a season that most greens can't sustain. Here's what most gardeners don't realize. Wild arugula self-seeds gently over time, meaning new plants establish themselves naturally around the original without any effort on your part. After a few seasons, you have a spreading patch of continuous salad greens that asks for nothing and keeps delivering. Vegetable 8. Good King Henry. And this is the one that changed how I think about growing food. Good King Henry has been cultivated in Europe for hundreds of years, since at least the Middle Ages. It was a staple in cottage gardens and kitchen gardens across England and Central Europe for centuries. And then, sometime in the late 1800s, it simply fell out of fashion as commercial vegetable growing took over. Today, most American gardeners have never heard of it. That's a genuine loss, because what this plant does is unlike almost anything else you can grow. Good King Henry is a compact perennial that grows about 2 feet tall in partial shade or full sun, with rich, fertile soil. It establishes in the first year and then begins producing in year 2. And what it produces is remarkable. In early spring, the young shoots push up from the ground and are harvested and cooked exactly like asparagus. Cut them when they're 5 or 6 inches tall, steam or sauté them, and they have a flavor that's earthy, slightly mineral, genuinely delicious. Then, as the season progresses, the leaves expand. Large, dark green, arrow-shaped. And those leaves are harvested and used exactly like spinach. Steamed, sautéed, added to soups and stews. And later in the season, the flower buds form in dense clusters and are harvested and prepared like broccoli. 3 different vegetables. 3 different harvests. 3 different windows of production. 1 plant. 1 planting. The plant improves the soil around it as it grows, fixes nitrogen naturally, and requires almost no maintenance once established. It handles cold well, comes back reliably every spring, and gets more productive with each passing year. It's not easy to find at a local garden center. You'll need to order it online from a specialty nursery or a permaculture seed supplier. But once it's in the ground, it will be there for years. And every spring, when those first shoots push up, you'll understand exactly why generations of gardeners before us built their food gardens around it. This is what it looks like to plant something once and eat from it for the rest of your life. Before I wrap up, one thing that ties all 8 of these together. Every single vegetable on this list has the same first season in common. Establishment. They're putting down roots, building the underground system that will power everything that comes after. Some of them will look modest in that first year. Some of them will ask you not to harvest at all. That first season is an investment, not a result. But what comes after that investment is a garden that works differently than anything most people have experienced. Not a cycle that resets every spring. A system that compounds. More productive in year 3 than year 2. More productive in year 5 than year 3. A permanent food source, expanding quietly underground while you do other things. That's what an orchard does. And now your vegetable garden can do the same. If this video changed the way you think about growing food, give it a like. It helps more people find this kind of content, and I genuinely appreciate it. Leave a comment and tell me which of these you're adding to your garden first. Are you Team Asparagus, Team Sunchoke, or Team Good King Henry? I'll be reading every response. And if someone you know is tired of starting over every single spring, send them this video. The answer was never more effort. It was better plants. The Hardy Garden Guide is still in the first pinned comment if you want to go deeper. Grab it while it's still there. Subscribe and hit the bell. Every week, real plants, real results. I'm Daniel. I'll see you in the next one.